Situational Judgment Items, or SJIs. These are perhaps the 3 scariest words for anyone preparing to take their SHRM certification exam. What are they, and how do you answer them? I'm Christina Danforth from HR Jetpack, a top SHRM Education Partner that has helped hundreds of HR pros like you earn and keep their SHRM certification. In this video, I'll dig into the details to help ease your anxiety and successfully respond to situational judgment items. The exam includes 3 different types of multiple choice questions, including knowledge items, situational judgment items, and field test questions. There are 96 knowledge-based items, 64 situational judgment items, and 30 of these 160 items are field test questions. Let's focus on the second type of question, a situational judgment item, or SJI. They are more in-depth and will take longer to read and understand. For these questions, you'll be given a scenario meant to assess your decision-making skills and judgment as an HR pro. You will need to identify the best approach to either resolve or at least address an issue. It's no surprise these questions are more in-depth than the knowledge items. The SJIs only test the 8 behavioral competencies. In fact, those who develop the questions use the proficiency indicators to identify different actions an HR pro could take to respond to a problem. If you don't know what a proficiency indicator is, please watch my video that explains how they are the most overlooked concept when preparing for a SHRM certification. When it comes to situational judgment items, there is no one right answer. In fact, all 4 responses may be effective. However, your task is to identify the most effective response to the situation. In fact, you could rank the 4 responses from least to most effective. By the way, there are no trick questions. These questions were developed by your HR peers and colleagues based on real-life scenarios, and the responses are identified by SHRM certified professionals. No one is trying to trick you. Let's walk through the steps to respond to a situational judgment item. Step number 1, read the question and the responses very carefully. Focus intently on the question in front of you. Since they tend to be longer than the knowledge items, you may want to take a few notes, identifying key elements of the situation. Once you understand the question, read all 4 answers. Step number 2, strike out distractions and think through the effectiveness of all 4 responses. All 4 responses could be considered effective, but there is one that is most effective. How do you know which one is the most effective? That's determined by the best practice, which is determined by the proficiency indicators in the SHRM body of competency and knowledge. This is why it is essential to review and understand the proficiency indicators. You can rank the responses from least to most effective. You may be able to quickly identify the least effective response and cross it out. For instance, if the situation is related to handling communications about a new health and wellness program, you could send out a mass email with the hopes that your workforce will read it. In the past, this might have been effective. But is this a best practice? Wouldn't it be more effective to host an employee meeting, or better yet, invite the health and wellness program manager to speak to your workforce? What's the best way to engage your workforce with this new program? An email is okay, but according to the best practice standards defined by the proficiency indicators, sending an email is not the most effective practice. Therefore, you would know to cross out this as the least effective method. Now that you've crossed out one, you're left with 3 options instead of 4. Step number 3, select a response. For situational judgment items, it's especially important to put your big HR hat on to identify the best practice. Remember, this isn't necessarily what you would do at your current workplace or in your industry, but what you should do. When we say best practice, we're talking about the HR profession as a whole. Your workplace may not have all the resources and tools to implement best practice standards. So, when you're reading a question, instead of personalizing it, think about how you would answer the question if you worked for a large multinational corporation with a big budget and unlimited resources. Identifying the best answer means thinking strategically, beyond compliance, although the answer will always be legal and ethical. The correct answer has been proven with data and is focused on continuous improvement. The best practice answer will often be active, not passive. It will encourage being a partner, collaborating with other departments, working across organizational business functions, and being inclusive. It will likely be proactive and impactful. It's incredibly important to work with the information that you are given. Don't fill in the blanks. In other words, don't assume anything. We have a tendency to personalize these situations. No surprise there. We live some of them as HR professionals. However, we must focus on the facts. Step number 4, move on. Remember, this is a timed exam. After you make your selection, you must quickly move on to the next one. If you have any doubts about it, flag it. If you have any extra time at the end, you will have the opportunity to review flagged items. But it's important not to invest too much time on any one question.